Okay, welcome back. This is, I guess you could say, part three of the original video about webcam and electronic cardboard and so on. This is interesting because we've now switched over to a different microphone. This is the professional USB mic hanging above my head somewhat, and instead of the lavalier microphone. Why? Did the lavalier microphone battery go out? Did my idea of using the battery bank not work? No, I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I'll get there. What's the reason for this continuation? Well, the fact of the matter is, just wanted to say why the camcorder wasn't working. It wasn't. Let's put it this way: it was powered on. It was not on fire. The dog did not destroy it, or the dogs did not destroy it. But it needed to be cycled for the power. Don't know why. Why did it lose? Don't know. These things happen. So I restarted the camera, and lo and behold, yeah, it came back. So then other people might be saying, why do you do this anyway? Isn't this a lot of, I mean, it's a hobby, but isn't it a lot of work? And the truth of the matter is, yeah. So why do we do this? Why don't we just play a video game? Well, it goes a long way ago, a long time ago. I was big into models. Like, remember I said 1971, 72. Well, in Toronto, in Canada, a former British Empire colony, okay, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, we were getting all kinds of good, cool stuff from England. A lot of models by the name of Airfix. I know that's hard to accept, but it's true. So, along with that was 187th scale models we were making, or 176 is actually more accurate. Fujimi in Japan was also making 176 scale models. Then Hasegawa came along, again Japanese 172, and not 176. So that was a kind of a big impact. And from that moment on, in the 70s, things started to get exponentially bigger, faster, better. Plastic injection molding created models that were outstanding. And then, of course, the miniatures themselves, the infantry, artillery, all the things of models regarding military stuff. And, of course, we were into more than just World War II. We were into ancients as well as Napoleonics. So anyway, when all this stuff started coming online, that's when we started, playing with it. And we had war games, and yes, those old rules called tactics or tractics we were using. And in North Ontario, in North Brampton, in Brampton, there was a library which we used to go to often. And by we, I mean my oldest brother Kevin and one of our friends, Vincent Chan. Who I don't know if he's still around, but it would be great to see him, talk to him, I suppose. We would go to this library in Brampton, and we'd play these games with these guys that were there, and not just World War II, but essentially World War II. And there was the Eastern Front focus as well as, well, some Western, I believe, but mostly Eastern Front. And that's where I got interested in the Eastern Front, and I became quickly engulfed in all things Russia versus Germany for the war. And of course, the Western Front was also big, but I was just more interested in Soviet armor. So that's where we all started, and we played these games, and these were not, battle cry 2 foot by 2 foot games. These were 16 feet long by 6 feet deep. These were massive games. These were games on a massive scale with up to 20 people playing it all the time. Back in those days, almost every weekend. And that's why everybody it was like Battletech way back, when it first started. People were just nutty over everything to do with miniature war games. And when I got into Napoleonics and then American Revolution and a War of 1812 and so on and so forth, my dad was fascinated, and he was like, wow, this is just incredible, Terry. So what he did in my basement, in our basement in Mississauga, is he built me a a motorized game table. Why? Because the game table was, up all the time. And he's like, you know what? Let's motorize it to the ceiling, Terry. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. How are you going to do that? Well, he figured it out. He's an engineer, of course, and he made this lift mechanism that took the table via cables into the ceiling. So it was up and out of the way. And it was a 4x6. Maybe not quite 4x6. It may have been 5x4. I don't know why it wasn't 6 feet. But at any rate, it was cool. And that's where I had access, and I was using that for many years. And it was a great benefit to be able to hide the game table. Anyway, so that's what this segment is about. And so you can see we've got our cameras working. The GoPro we'll leave off for now. The GoPro is what you want to call your incidental camera, or your instance camera. You use it to create or grab an image of something that's going on the game table, whereas these two other views are overviews. The GoPro, like my phone, when I use the Android app, will be used to capture things that happened on the table in close-up. Or if a player says, hey, I want to focus on that bridge. Can you give me a shot of the bridge? Okay, so we'll take the camera and put it on there, and the shot of the bridge will be seen from whatever angle the person wants. And that's why it's always good to have little tiny tripods with the attachments on them to hold whatever camera you've got. In my case, it would be in that example, the Android phone. So you'd have this little tiny tripod, and it sits on the game table, and it has a little adapter a thing on it, and that holds the camera. And of course, because it's using the wireless software for the Android phone, what's it called? Droid Cam software, that can then be picked up by OBS. Should I elucidate on that? I'm not sure. Suffice to, we've done it before. We've talked about this before. Using the Droid Cam software to look at to use the Android phone, essentially as a wireless camera. And so everybody puts on the brakes. What? Well, Terry, right? You were just talking about all this stuff about webcam. This and that and this and that and audio issues and all this other kind of stuff. Why the hell don't you just use the Android camera? And that's a very good question. Right? Good question. Well, the immediate answer is because it's a phone. Okay, so if you use the camera on the game table and you got it hooked up all the time, you don't use it. You got to have a phone, right? All right, so you get another camera. There you go. So, or get another phone, I should say. So yes, the idea would be to get a new phone and then use the old phone as a new webcam using the Android software. And that eliminates virtually every problem that I've been talking about. Why is that? Right? What about audio? Audio, not so good on the Android or any phone, right? Not true. Android's actually, or the phone is, the audio is actually pretty good. But there's an additional benefit. Aside from the fact that the camera, the phone itself, it's battery operated, and that battery's going to wear down. But then, Terry, you can use your battery bank, right? Yes. But here's the other problem. The audio of the Android phone can have a microphone, as you know, through a cable plugged into it. You can have a microphone separately from the microphone of the actual phone, like a lavalier mic, plugged into the Android phone, and there you go. Better audio, better capture. No environmental sounds as much when you have an actual clip-on microphone. And there you go. That's exactly it. So you can use the Android phone as a camera and better audio source coming into OBS. And that's exactly what is the ultimate conclusion of all this technology. You can stay with the old way of the wires coming from a camera called a webcam, or the wires coming from a camcorder through the HDMI, as I said. And by the way, not all HDMI or connectors are the same. but in this case it's a Canon camcorder, fairly professional, but sitting idle because we only use it when we travel, essentially. Never used any other time. And so there we are. So, but this kind of technology provides for us much sleeker environment, less impact, less footprint. Using the Android phone is basically the best solution. But again, can you use more than one at the same time? Can I have an Android phone looking at one part of the game table and then another Android phone looking at another part of the game table and using the same Droid Cam software? Because it's essentially an IP address being assigned to that phone? I don't know. That is a good question. Could I test it with my wife's phone? Yes, but I would have to make a requisition for that. Okay? You can't just go and grab the phone. Oh, hell and damnation, you know, fire and brimstone. Yeah. Dogs and cats living together. Yeah, mass hysteria. Don't touch the phone, Terry. She'll buy me another one, is what she would say. Don't touch my phone. But anyway, could I test it? Yes. Would I have to still ask? Of course. Honey, I need to borrow your phone for a minute. Why? I want to test to see if I can use two Android cameras at the same time with a single instance of Droid Cam. And she'd go, what? Oh, just don't break it. You know, after a time, you can only take so much information. Anyway, so that's what she would probably say. We'll find out. Right. Okay, so after all these videos, are we ready finally to progress with turn number 2? Actually, the second part of turn number 1, which is the... Actually, no. It is the conclusion of turn 1 because the gun turrets, the Hoth gun turrets have open fire on the invader, the guy coming out of the spherical dropship in his 3 mechs, and so far no infantry's come out of that thing. We're gonna test the rules and the game system using just these mechs for now. Does the Defender have infantry? Yeah, but right now it's just mechs, right? Even though we said we're all military, we're all, you know, combined arms here. But the fact of the matter is, this is traditionally what would probably happen, right? You can send in your tip of the spear. You send in your armor first because you're going to do damage with that. And then if things get wonky and you need to start doing other things, okay, pile out. All the guys come piling out of there, or they get in their APCs, and the APC comes flying out of the dropship. And it goes to its objective, which in this case would be probably the bridges, because the bridges have to be taken. You can't cross that river walking across it. You can jump across, but you can't walk. It's deep. It's a deep cut, and if you don't take 1 or 2 of those bridges and the third bridge, then you'll have to go around, follow the top part of the map to get to that fort. Well, why? Why don't you just bomb it? Okay. Why don't you just send in aerospace fighters, Terry, and blow the hell out of it? Well, the objective is not to blow the hell out of it. The objective is to capture it intact. Why? Because it's a mech repair facility. If you destroy it, you won't be able to repair mechs, battle mechs. Okay, it's like a Stalingrad. If you destroy the factory, you won't be able to make anything in the factory. Well, they did destroy the factories, right? I think they did. But the point is, the buildings were there, and the gantries were there. And what does that mean? The gantries provide the ability of lifting very heavy things into position, aka turrets, on top of tanks. They're tank chassis. Therefore, it was the tractor factory, right? Okay, Stalingrad, remember? So, attacking the fort, destroying it, not the idea. Capture it. How do you capture? What defines capturing? Well, that's a good question. What defines surrender? Or at what point does the owner of it surrender it? Why doesn't he just blow it up himself? Well, because, you know, maybe he wants it back. You don't want to blow it up. You know, you don't just blow up stuff. You want to try and keep it. I mean, it's expensive. It costs billions and billions, right? So that's where we're at. And I suppose the next thing that will happen is we will have the arriving of the Defender forces, because right now there's much there. I think there's something in the fort itself that will come out I'm not sure what it is yet, but I think there's something there. I don't remember the scenario. But the same is, the attacker is going to have more, because this can't just survive. You can't win this scenario with just 3 mechs, even though I know it looks simple. Overwhelming force is always the best. Does he have any more? Excuse me. Is that the extent of his forces? Not entirely, but does he have an aerospace fighter? Yes. And that was part of our first initial test, was aerospace fighters coming in and being hit by, or ground surface-to-air missiles being fired at them. And that was a way we tested the rules for missiles tracking aircraft. And exactly how does that happen? How exactly does that work? When a missile comes after an aircraft, especially in this era, in the 23rd century, is it just ridiculously sophisticated, or is it kind of not quite that sophisticated? I mean, 21st and 22nd century, I'm not sure. But we did test the idea, we did test the concept of the surface-to-air missile following this plane, and the plane took evasive action and left the theater. And whether or not anything happened outside, we don't know. We would roll for it. We would have a random event to see if that plane actually survived being attacked by that missile. And if it made it, it would come back. And they would continue to pummel whatever forces the defender had, that aerospace fighter. But remember, in a sense, those Hoth gun turrets, unless they're knocked out, they are also anti-aircraft. So, and that's the bad thing, because we researched this. The reality of getting hit by a beam weapon. Does it have to be pinpoint accuracy? Can it be a wide dispersal beam that affects an area of the plane's zone? Kind of. Pinpoint accuracy, laser, not necessary. Wide dispersal beam energy, hitting an aircraft or aerospace fighter, yeah, pretty deadly. Why? Because it's really not, there's no defense against it, essentially. There may be deflectors that are possible on the aerospace fighter to deflect that dispersal beam and make it even more dispersed. But the fact is that you don't need, from the firing unit, pinpoint accuracy to hit that plane. You don't need to fire, lead bullets at it. Oh boy, what? Lead bullets? Yes, back in the day. You don't need that. Having a wide dispersal beam is going to affect the aircraft in multiple ways, because it's basically an energy beam weapon. So that's what the Hoth pulse weapons are. They are pulse energy. We saw it, pew, 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 right? That's how they fire bolts of energy. And that's the idea. And of course, we have that same technology in the mechs themselves. But the gun turret is still hasn't been knocked out yet. I'm sure it will be soon. But the defender has other forces coming in. All right, so let's go, and we'll come back and start the second phase, or what did I say it was? Probably the second turn. Now, in the second turn, what's going to happen? The attacker forces are going to move more, and the defender forces will come in as well. And then we'll continue from there. You might even see some ground combat, depending on if it fits the scenario. It's in the scenario, but I don't know if I'm going to go to the effort of it. So there we are.